we, 2 times a year, or in the past 2 times a year, have had a Sunday on Christmas and on Easter when the kids stay in. And now this past year, we actually had the kids come up. We thought, well, if we've got a lot of unbelievers that come and they're not used to having their kids in the service, this may be a way for us to evangelize those kids specifically in a way that they're paying attention and maybe just trying to make it accessible to them. And so I think depending on, your setting, it might be worth it doing that. But I also see it's very valuable to have them in the worship service and hear the gospel proclaimed to the whole church. So I think there's just a lot that you can do with that, but you can have evangelistic gifts that you give, again, showing that don't have it filled with, Easter bunny and even eggs. I mean, you said the history there, but most people don't know that. And so I think you just be very explicit about Christ and what he's accomplished.
For us, we don't do the big Easter egg hunt, and in our area we found it not the most effective way as kind of an event thing. But I think there's a lot of ways that we can kind of build anticipation. So one thing that we do almost every year in our Sunday school hour is we have the big Palm Sunday parade, the palm leaf parade. And I think it's it's an old thing that Christians have been doing in America for a long time, and some people reject it for being such an old kind of traditional thing. But I think there's a beauty in it, and I think we can keep doing the old school palm leaf presentations in that kind of way, the palm leaf parades, to build anticipation for Holy Week. But also one thing that we do is, we see Easter as a time that Christ has served us, and in such an amazing way. And so one of our only events that's kind of a big event in preparation for Easter is we have something called Family Service Saturday, where we come together as families and serve those who are in need in our communities. And it's for the listeners from our church, it's on March 17th. Starting at 9 a.m. And we have a time, one of the major parts of it is we fill up a shoebox full of different toys and gifts and all sorts of Easter goodies for needy children that wouldn't have opportunities to get those kind of things in our community, and to really bless them and hopes that they might come out maybe to our worship service and maybe hear the wonderful news of King Jesus that loves them far more than we could possibly love them.
So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's one thing that we do. And how can churches reach the Christmas Easter kids, the Creaster kids, as we might call them, and their families this year?
Well, some of the stuff I mentioned before, just as you're trying to magnify Christ. We did this at Christmas where we had a gift because Christmas, the Christmas service was on the 24th, and so we ordered these evangelistic books that assumed that the kids knew nothing about Christmas. Now, in our culture here in the South, that's not really the case for most kids. They know at least, okay, baby Jesus was born, but I don't know how much more they know than that. But consider something like that if you've got the funds for it. But find something like it that assumes that they don't know what this is all about. And so we got ours. I guess this is a free plug for them, but Matthias Media, because they're down in Australia and they're used to evangelizing and discipling people who are coming from all kind of cultural backgrounds who know nothing about the Bible. And so they really start at the basics and it's square one. And so, and I don't even know what they have for Easter. I would imagine they have something, but something like that, because kids, who doesn't like receiving a gift? But I can think of other things, but we're not trying to do a commercial for different people, but there are ways that you can get that's clear about the importance of Easter and makes the gospel message very plain and accessible to them. I think too, in your service, explain what you're doing or talk about it in new, fresh ways, because you're going to have people there who they're not used to what you're doing. They don't know why you're doing it. And so just making that plain to them. And again, I think consider having a context for children's teaching if you expect a high volume of kids that are coming who aren't churched. And I certainly wouldn't. We've done both things while I've been here. So I'm not principally, joined to just one way of doing it. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for us, we do kind of, like I mentioned earlier, we try to make the worship service, the Easter worship service, a family affair, and so in that we do have we have something for the kids. We have Easter activities for the kids that are silent in the pews, as well as we have a special presentation that involves the kids and really celebrates the kids. And I think that oftentimes when we bring attention to people's kids, we can that excite families. So I think even one way too that as much as it's another old school way of doing things, children's choirs. If you have a big children's choir event on Easter, people will come if they know that
they will come watch their kids perform.
They will come watch their kids perform and use that opportunity to hear the beautiful voices of children worshiping, but allow us an opportunity to kind of bridge into our community. And I think having that evangelistic zest in our Easter services helps us really understand more and more the connection of the Great Commission and the amazing resurrection of Christ. So I don't think these are divorced in any way, shape, or form from one another.
It's good.
Now, should Easter time be the only time that we teach kids about Christ's death and resurrection? Should we just only teach them about it Easter time and just forget about it for the rest of the year?
No, certainly not. But sometimes that is what happens. You just if you just are teaching Bible passages, Bible stories, and you're kind of divorcing it from the wider context of the rest of the Bible, then that you could end up there unintentionally. And so, to me, I don't see why you wouldn't point out some connection to Christ every time you're teaching. Now, I mean, people have different opinions on that, but if you've got the opportunity, why not go ahead and take it? Because, I mean, Jesus said, these scriptures, Pharisees, that you're looking at, they bear witness about me, and you come to me to have eternal life. And so I think that we should just be talking about it all the time, and so that the kids see that it is that big of a deal, that it is the center. It's not just sort of an additional Bible story that, well, that's pretty cool, but like this is what it's all building up to, and it hangs on. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's sad to me that, I'm glad that any curriculum wants to talk about the resurrection of Christ, but what does sadden me is that I've encountered many children's curriculums, many youth curriculums, many teaching curriculums, period, only really want to address the resurrection of Christ once a year around Easter, or, and in some cases of when we talked about, avoid telling the whole story of the Passion of Christ. And I think this misunderstands the message of Scripture. I think the resurrection is built towards in all of the Bible. I mean, it's prophesied, It is central to who we understand Christ to be. It's not something that we can just mention once a year and adequately understand. In fact, I mean, the reason why Christians worship on Sunday is because we in celebration of the resurrection. So.
Right.
Yeah, I think historically Christians have understood this to be a core central truth that we need to be talking about each and every single week. So even the hymns that we pick and the songs that we sing with our kids, we need to be having, even in September, songs about Christ rising from the dead and the beauty that is contained in it. Even when we have family worship in July, we can talk about what it means that Christ has defeated death for us.
Yeah, when I came to understand that the place of the resurrection in God's plan, I guess in the past it's sort of in the background, but that it is just monumental in God overcoming sin and all that comes with it. It's the final capping achievement, and so it brings a lot of worship and hope.
That's good. Well, thank you for your vital input, your vital points here, Ben. Listeners, make sure that you guys get us giant Easter bunnies this year so we can enjoy that in Easter time. Am I right? Anyway, so we're so glad to have you listen to us every podcast, and most certainly we're glad to have you listen to us today. If you've liked this podcast, we want to encourage you to download it. Download episodes that we come out every first and third Thursday of every month, and you can download us on iTunes. You can listen on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spreaker, all sorts of sources. We're glad to have you listen in whatever format that you do. And we encourage you, if you've enjoyed this episode or any episode, to review our podcast, especially on iTunes, as this helps us reach more people, as well as share it on social media or in person to those who might be benefited by this podcast. If you'd like to reach out to us with questions, you can reach out to me at Anthony Trisoni on Twitter, or if you have any complaints, you can reach out to Ben.
I'm at Ben Palaz.
Don't just send complaints to Ben. I tease. And we're again glad to have you join us, and we hope that you have a wonderful Easter, that you keep Christ at the center, and that God blesses your family as you celebrate His wonderful resurrection.